Have you ever looked at a bunch of old records online and wondered, is there a real story here? Can you actually piece together a person's life from just a few digital breadcrumbs? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're diving into some historical records to uncover the incredible journey of one family in 19th century England. So let's get into it.
Okay, so on the one hand, you've got the raw materials, right? Census reports, birth certificates, just this list of names, dates, and places. And then on the other side, you have a beautiful, connected family tree. So the big question is, how do you get from here to there? How do we find the human story buried in all this data?
That's the mystery we're solving. For the next few minutes, we're going to be genealogical detectives. We're going to follow the clues, piece by piece, to put together a story of love, loss, and a massive migration that spans over 200 miles.
So, where do we even start with something like this? Well, like any good investigation, you have to begin with the individual pieces of the puzzle. Our story kicks off with one single person who is going to anchor this entire search for us.
Everyone, meet Mary Stuart. She was born way back in 1794, and she's the matriarch at the very heart of our story. Her life began in this small coastal village, Blakeney, in Norfolk, on the east coast of England. And it's right here that our investigation really gets going.
Just try to imagine what life was like in a place like Blakeney in the early 1800s. It was a world completely tied to the sea. Fishing, trade, the whole rhythm of life was dictated by the tides. For Mary and her growing family, this was their entire world. But as you'll see, the records show us a much harder, much tougher side to this life.
Now this is where the story gets really powerful, and honestly, pretty heartbreaking. It just reveals so much about how fragile life was back then. Look at these dates. Mary has a son, William, in 1832. He dies just a year later. Then she has a daughter, Charlotte, in 1834, and she passes away when she's only 2. This wasn't some rare tragedy. This was a devastatingly common reality for families.
So what this means is that Mary Stuart lost at least 2 of her children when they were just babies. 2 huge, unimaginable heartbreaks, and they're captured in just a couple of lines in an old parish register. This was a story that was repeated in countless families all across the country at that time.
So for decades, this cycle of joy and incredible hardship really defined the family's life there in Norfolk. They were rooted in that place, building a life against this really challenging backdrop. But, as we're about to see, the records were starting to hint at a massive change, a journey that would completely reshape their family's future.
And here it is. This is the aha moment. Sometimes in this kind of research, the biggest breakthroughs come from the tiniest little details. This little digital tag right here, found in the records of a relative named John Wharton, is the key that unlocks the whole thing. It is our first solid clue that a major move was happening.
Okay, let's break this down, because this is huge. John Wharton is born in Crawley, Norfolk. Think quiet, rural life, fishing boats. But by the time his first kid is born in 1855, he is all the way up in Blyth, Northumberland. That's a world of booming coal mines and heavy industry, over 200 miles to the north. This isn't just a small move. This is a complete and total transformation of their world.
So this one clue just blows open a whole new chapter in their story. You got to remember, this was the Industrial Revolution, a time of massive change and movement. People are being pulled from the quiet countryside into these bustling cities and industrial towns with the promise of work. And it turns out the Wharton and Carr families were part of that great migration. They were leaving behind everything they ever knew for the promise of something new.
Now let's get back to our matriarch, Mary, because this timeline, wow, it's incredibly powerful. In 1851, she's still in Norfolk. But then, in 1856, tragedy strikes. Her husband, James, dies. Just 5 years later, the 1861 census finds her in Blyth, Northumberland, with her children. The records are showing us that after her husband died, this widow, now in her late 60s, made that long, hard journey north all by herself to be with her family again.
So, the family made it to Northumberland. But was this just a temporary stop for them, or did they actually put down new roots? Well, lucky for us, the census records give us a pretty clear answer. This table really shows their commitment to their new home. Look at John Wharton. He's in a town called Cowpen in 1861, and he's still there 40 years later in 1901. And Mary's son, William Jeweler Carr, he settles just down the road in North Shields. They weren't just passing through, they were building a new life here for good.
And what's the ultimate proof that you're putting down roots? A new generation. kids started being born, not in Norfolk, but in Northumberland. Elizabeth, John, James, and Annie. Their birthplaces officially marked the family's transition. They were now, through and through, a northern family.
But why? Why did they make this massive move? We can guess it was about jobs and industry, but this simple little note from the 1861 census gives us the real human reason. Mary Stuart, the widowed matriarch, was found living with her son-in-law, Robert Dixon, also her daughter, Emma Carr. The bottom line is, she moved for family, to be with them, to support them, and to be supported by them. It wasn't just about economics, it was about connection.
All right, so let's zoom out for a second and just look at the complete picture we've managed to build. We started with all these scattered, disconnected records, but just by following the clues, we've pieced together a really powerful human story.
We've gone from a single data point, a birth, a death, one census entry, to this rich, multi-generational story, all represented here by this completed family tree. I mean, this is the magic of digital history, right? Connecting all these separate pieces of information to reveal the full tapestry of a family's past.
So what's the takeaway here? Well, we've uncovered a story of incredible resilience, especially in the face of child mortality. We've charted a family's epic migration from the rural coast to the industrial north. And we saw how one single tiny clue, that digital tag, was the key to connecting it all. It's a whole narrative, and it was just hiding there in the data the entire time.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. The story of the Carr and Wharton families is pretty remarkable, but it's not unique. Millions of us have ancestors who made similar journeys, who faced similar hardships, and showed that same kind of resilience. So the real question is, what stories are waiting to be discovered in your family's digital fragments?